Hello everyone, welcome to this particular session. Today we are going to look at chapter 5 of system analysis and design, which is about feasibility study. But before that, let us remind ourselves what we covered in our previous session, whereby we looked at problem definition. We also looked at the problem indicators, and we also looked at methods of identifying the problems, and lastly we also covered the contents of terms of reference. Maybe just to mention some of the problem indicators that we looked at, we mentioned about problem gaps, we even looked at user complaints, increased cost, missed deadlines, productivity decline, purpose and objectives. We also looked at scope, problem statements, roles and responsibilities, deliverables, schedule, and timeline. And under the methods of identifying the problem, we were able to see what root cause analysis talks about, what SWOT analysis talks about, fishbone diagram, brainstorming, and even data collection and analysis. So today we are going to look at feasibility study. So maybe just to define what it is, when you talk about feasibility study, it is a preliminary investigation which is used to determine the viability of a proposed project. So in the context of system analysis and design, feasibility study, it assesses whether a new system or significant changes to an existing system are practical and feasible and even beneficial. So in other terms, you can just say it is the process of analyzing whether the proposed system is feasible or not. And if it is not feasible, we need to look at other alternatives. So this one, it helps to find the strengths and weaknesses of an existing business or even a proposed venture, opportunities and even threats which are present in the environment. So the resources which are required to carry through and ultimately the prospects for success. Yeah, so that is all about feasibility study. So we also have uses of feasibility study. So just to mention a few of them. So the first one is to determine the objectives which are stated in the assignment are brief and are reasonably attainable within the limitation and financial constraints period. And then also it is used to determine major problem areas so that the system analyst can plan the strategy for the field investigation. And also it is used to find areas where potential exists for saving money, time or even effort. It is also used to determine the approximate time which is required for the full investigation and costs. It is also used to discover the areas where some specialist knowledge are needed for the full investigation which is needed. So let us also look at the types of feasibility. Just to mention, under importance of feasibility study, we also have other importance such as risk mitigation, whereby we say that it helps to identify and address potential risk and challenges early in the development process. It also helps in resource allocation, whereby it ensures that resources are allocated effectively to projects which are likely to be successful. And then also it helps in stakeholder alignment, whereby it facilitates alignment and even buy-in from stakeholders by, let's say, demonstrating the project's viability. So that is all under importance of feasibility study. So next we're going to look at the types of feasibility study. We have a number of them. Just to start with, we have technical feasibility. We have technical feasibility. We also have economical feasibility. we have operational feasibility. We also have schedule feasibility. And just to mention again, we also have legal feasibility. We have legal feasibility. So to start with, let's start with technical feasibility. What does technical feasibility talk about? So when you talk about technical feasibility, it is a measure of the availability of technical resources. That one, it could be hardware components or even the technical equipment. So under technical feasibility, it evaluates if the necessary technology is available and it is even compatible with the proposed system. Number two, it also assesses the complexity of the system and its potential impact on development and time and cost. Thirdly, it also determines, you can say it also determines the required technical expertise which is available within a particular organization, or it can be acquired. And just to give an example, maybe we can say that you may have a company which is considering implementing a new system which will need to assess if their IT infrastructure, maybe let's say, can support it. So, and if they have the necessary technical skills to develop or customize it. So here, technical feasibility will be needed to evaluate the necessary technology which is available and ensure that it is compatible with that proposed new system to that particular company. Then we also have economical feasibility. Economical feasibility measures whether finances are available for proposed solution. So for example, it looks at the financial aspects, that is cost or effectiveness of the project. So it compares the expected cost of the project with the anticipated benefits. And under cost, again, we can say that it calculates the financial return which is expected from the project. For example, you may have a company which is considering a new ERP system. It will need to, let's say, calculate the potential savings in the operational costs, maybe increased efficiency, and even improved decision making, just to justify the investment of that new ERP system. Thirdly, we have operational feasibility. So under operational feasibility, you can say it is a measure of how well the solution of problems or a specific alternative solution will work in the organization. So it also measures how people feel about that particular system, whether the system is not easy to operate. The operational process will be difficult. So the operator of that system will be given proper training. Yeah, so under operational feasibility, we can see that it evaluates if the proposed system aligns with the organization's existing business process and even, let's say, workflows. It also assesses the likelihood of users adopting and using the new system effectively. For example, we might have a company which is implementing a new time tracking system, which will need, let's say, to ensure that it integrates seamlessly with the existing payroll processes, and that, let's say, the employees are willing to use it accurately. So that is under operational feasibility. Next, we have schedule feasibility. So under schedule feasibility, if a deadline is established, it is called schedule feasibility. For example, the deadline of the project is studied under the schedule feasibility. So the schedule feasibility is, also depends upon available manpower and even economical condition as well. So when you talk about timeline, here in schedule feasibility, it determines if the project can be completed within the desired time frame. Then when we mention about resources, now this one assesses the availability of necessary resources such as, let's say, personnel. We can have maybe equipment and even funding. Just to give an example, you might have a company which is launching, let's say, a new online store. This store will need maybe to consider the time which is required to develop a website and even integrate payment gateways and even, let's say, implement marketing campaigns. So here, a schedule feasibility will be conducted to determine if that particular project can be completed within the desired time frame. And then we have legal feasibility. So under legal feasibility, it checks basically it checks on regulations, whereby it checks if the proposed system, let's say, complies with relevant laws, regulations, and even the industry standards. It also evaluates on the potential intellectual property issues. And an example of that, of such intellectual property issues is like copyright or even patent infringement. For example, a healthcare organization which wants to develop a new patient record system, it will need to ensure that there is compliance with data privacy and security regulations, whereby the data of the patients can be protected and not given to unauthorized personnel. So that is all under legal feasibility. That is all under legal feasibility. We also have resource feasibility, whereby it talks about whether you have enough resources or what resources will be required, and even what facilities will be required for that particular project. So that one is just all about the resources which are required or will be required for a particular project. Then we also have fact-finding methods which are used to gather data. So when you talk about fact-finding, this involves collection of information about the existing system on which to base analysis in order to determine whether users' current needs are even being met. So there are activities which are involved in data gathering. For example, we have functional requirements, whereby we say that the requirements should be established. We also have determination of the proposed system requirements, whereby this is necessary and it may suggest a change in the existing system requirements. So number 3, also we need to establish any weakness or problems which are associated with the present system, working methods, and even the procedures. Number 4 is determination of the organizational growth rate. So this one will assist in determination of the growth of the volume of transactions which are to be processed. And lastly, there is determination of the organization structure, objective, and even the cost which are associated with the present system. So that is all about the activities which are involved in data gathering or collecting of information about the existing system. So what are some of the methods which are used to gather data? So number 1, we have the common ones, which are questionnaires. We also have interviews. We have observations. We have record inspection or document reviews. We have sampling. We have sampling methods, yeah. We have workshops. We have prototyping. Let me remove this one because it's just the same as what we've mentioned earlier about sampling, yeah. So we have workshops and prototyping. So let us look at them one by one. We see what it talks about. So let's start with questionnaires. So a questionnaire is a special document which allows the analyst to ask a number of standard prepared questions which are set to be asked to a large number of people in order to gather information from them. Yeah, so a questionnaire involves asking a number of standard prepared questions. Yeah, so what are some of the advantages of using questionnaires? So number one, it provides a cheap means of gathering information from a very large number of people. Yeah, and then also it encourages individuals to provide responses without fear, intimidation, or victimization, because it's not you're given the questions, let's say on a piece of paper. You don't need to be interrogated, so at least there you can answer anything without having that feeling that you're going to be judged by that particular person. Yeah, then also the respondents can complete the questionnaires at their own convenient time with minimal interruption from their work. Then lastly, questionnaires are presented consistently to all participating without any biasness. So what are some of the disadvantages of questionnaires? What are some of the disadvantages of questionnaires? So number one, the response is often too slow since the respondents complete and return the forms at their own convenience. So we may have a very low response rate, which leads to a biased result. And then also we have, it doesn't provide an opportunity for respondents to obtain any clarification or even questions which may appear vague or ambiguous in nature. So here it may lead to provision of let's say inaccurate or misleading answers from the respondents. Then also number three, the design of questionnaires, it requires an expert who may charge expensively and may not be economical when administered to a very small group of respondents. Then also all forms may not be returned and not all questions may be answered, which leads to incomplete data for analysis. So this one also brings about inaccurate or misleading, not really inaccurate, it leads to having biased results. Yeah. Then also there is limited it brings about limitation to collecting data on specific topics or even variables. So that is all about questionnaires. And what are some of the circumstances which may lead to the use of a questionnaire? So a questionnaire may be used when you need to gather, let's say, quantitative data from a very large population on specific topics such as, let's say, customer satisfaction, you may have market research or even employee opinions. So that is an example of a circumstance which may lead to the use of a questionnaire. So there are also requirements which are needed for preparing a questionnaire. And just to mention, we have, let's say, questionnaires. It should be simple and clear. so that those people who are answering can be able to answer and provide correct answers. And then it should also be neat. It should be logically organized, and it should also be objectively oriented and avoid leading questions, so that it should not bring about any biasness in the results or responses from the respondents. So let us also look at our second method of data collection, which is interviews. So when we talk about interviews, this one is a face-to-face conversation between the analyst, that is the interviewer, and the users, which is the interviewee. So the analyst will obtain answers to questions he asks the interviewee. So the interviewee will also give suggestions or recommendations which may assist during the design of the proposed system. So there are also circumstances which may lead to the use of interviews. It may be used when you need to gather, let's say, detailed information on a specific topic, or even explore complex issues such as conducting research on sensitive topics, understanding, let's say, customer needs, or even evaluating employee performance. So those are some of the circumstances which may lead to the use of interviews. We also have advantages of using interviews. Let us look at the advantages of using interviews. Advantages of using interviews. So number one, we have the response rate tends to be high and immediate. That is because you are having that face-to-face conversation with the interviewer and interviewee. And then it also there is detailed facts. Detailed facts can be obtained from individual respondents. Detailed facts can be obtained from individual respondents. So here it allows for in-depth exploration of, let's say, complex issues and topics. And then there are more powerful means of getting information since there is direct contact with the respondent. So here the body language can easily be seen, and with interviews it provides qualitative data which can reveal insights to the topic or thing being asked about. Then also lastly, about advantages of interviews, the analyst can frame questions directly to individual depending on their level of understanding, and also allowing facts to be obtained. Then it also enables direct interaction with respondents, increasing understanding and even trust. So there are also disadvantages of using interviews. Number one, we have it is costly. It's very costly and time consuming when a large number of people are involved. And then also the success depends highly on the analyst competence, human relation skills, and experience. Lastly, the respondents may feel that they are being grilled. And just to mention also, it may be subject to interviewer biasness, yeah. And then also it is limited to a smaller sample size compared to when we are using surveys to carry out data collection. So that is all about interviews. That is all about interviews. Next, I'd like us to look at observation. So when you talk about observation, this is the most effective fact-finding technique, which but requires the analyst to participate in performing some activities carried out by the user. So here the analyst may choose to watch users as they perform the activities and even gather the facts intended from them as they perform those activities. So there are also circumstances which may lead to the use of observation. So the first one we have when validity of facts gathered through other methods are questionable. Then when also complexity of certain aspects of a system prevents a clear explanation by the respondent or the user. Then it is also used to confirm that procedures specified in the manuals are being followed in the case of an existing system. And then also when there is need to obtain first-hand and reliable information. Or we may also say that when you need to, let's say, study the behavior or interactions in a natural setting, let's say, such as evaluating customer behavior in a store, observing, let's say, animal behavior in the wild, or even studying classroom dynamics among the students. We also have advantages of using observation. So let us look at the advantages of using observation. So data gathered is highly reliable. Thus, the method can be used to verify facts collected through other methods. Then there is an opportunity for the analyst to see what happens exactly, including the tasks which are hard to explain clearly using words. Number three, inaccurately described tasks can be easily identified through observation. And then lastly, relatively cheap compared to other methods. It is very cheap compared to other methods because you're just observing what people are doing. Yeah, and documenting it. And then it also captures spontaneous and anticipated events. It may also provide, let's say, direct and first-hand evidence or behavior, and also it does not rely on self-reported data. Therefore, it reduces the risk of biasness. We also have disadvantages. So number one, people may always feel uncomfortable when being observed and may, let's say, behave abnormally. Thus, it may influence the analyst conclusion. Yeah. And then also the exercise may take place at odd times. Thus, it may thus inconveniencing those who are involved. Then the analyst may observe exceptional activities, which may leave some critical areas. And then also just to add, it can be very time consuming and labor intensive. It may be very time consuming and labor intensive. It may also be subject to observer biasness. It may be subject to observer biasness. Sorry. And then also it is limited to observing behaviors that are visible or easily observable. It is limited to observing behaviors that are visible or easily observable. So we also have document review. What does document review talk about? So when you talk about document review or records inspection, it involves collecting data by examining existing documents, records, or archives. So these documents could include reports, minutes, meeting minutes, financial records, logs and other relevant documentation, logbooks and also other relevant documentation. What are some of the advantages of document review? So the first one, it is cost effective, whereby we say that the data already exists, so there is no need to spend money on data collection processes like the use of surveys or interviews. It is also time efficient since the documents are already available, so the researcher here can access them quickly and even begin analysis immediately. So it has rich historical data, whereby the document review, it provides access to historical data, which can show trends, it can show patterns and the changes which are made over time. It's also non-intrusive, whereby we say that it does not require interaction with individuals, making it very less disruptive and even more objective since the data is pre-existing. We also have disadvantages. Of document review. So data may be incomplete or outdated, whereby when we have existing documents, it may not include all the information which is needed or could be outdated, leading to having inaccurate conclusions. Number two, there is bias in data, whereby the original creators of that particular document they might have had biases or even specific intentions, therefore affecting the objectivity of the data. Then also there is limited to available documents, whereby the researcher can only analyze what has been recorded, which may not fully address the research question. Lastly, it is very time consuming to locate relevant data, whereby if the documents are disorganized or even, let's say, spread across different sources, it can take significant time to locate and even compile the relevant data which is needed. So another data collection method, we have sampling method. So sampling is the process of selecting a subset of individuals, group, or data from a large population to represent the entire population. So this method can be probabilistic, that is random sampling, stratified sampling, or non-probabilistic, that is convenience sampling or quota sampling. So that is all about sampling method. So there are advantages of using sampling method. Number one, it is very cost efficient, whereby sampling reduces the need to collect data from the entire population. Therefore, this may bring about saving both time and resources. Number two, it leads to faster data collection. So here a sample allows data to be collected and analyzed more quickly compared to studying the whole population like how we do with questionnaires. Yeah. Then we also have manageable data size, whereby when we handle smaller samples, it simplifies data management and even analysis. Therefore, this is applicable for large population. Handling smaller sample simplifies data management and analysis. Here, this is supposed to be another advantage. Yeah, so our last advantage we have, it is applicable for large populations, whereby it is often impractical to collect data from very large populations. So sampling provides a very feasible alternative to collecting data. So we also have disadvantages of using sampling methods. Number one, there is risk of sampling bias, whereby if the sample is not representative of the entire population, the findings may not accurately reflect the broader group. Then also there is less detailed data, whereby a smaller sample may miss out on nuances that will be present in the full population. Thirdly, it brings about error, whereby there is always the possibility that the selected sample will differ significantly from the population, and this may lead to having inaccurate results. Lastly, there is complexity in selecting the right sample. So some sampling methods require a very detailed planning, which may need advanced statistical techniques to ensure validity, which may lead to advanced statistical techniques to ensure validity. So another method of data collection. We have method of data collection. So we have workshops, the use of workshops. So this refers to group meetings where stakeholders collaborate to discuss the system requirements and even potential solutions. Then you also have prototyping. This one involves creating a simplified version of the system to gather feedback from users. It involves creating a simplified version of the proposed system to gather feedback from users, or even to test the system's functionality and usability. To test the system functionality and usability. So that is all under prototyping. We also have focus groups. We have focus group. We also have case study. When we talk about, let me just add here, we have focus groups. So basically, when you talk about focus group, it involves facilitating. This one involves facilitating group discussions. With key individuals to gain insights and even perspectives. So later, I'd like for you to look at the advantages and disadvantages of workshops, focus groups, prototyping, and we can also have case studies. Can also include case studies. So under focus groups, we have a number of advantages. Like it facilitates interaction and discussions among participants. It can also generate new ideas and insights, and it also provides qualitative data which can be used to understand the group dynamics and even opinions. Then on disadvantages, it may be dominated by certain individuals. It can also be time consuming and expensive, and it may also it may not be representative of the entire population, because it's just focuses on facilitating group discussions. So we have circumstances also which leads to the use of these focus groups. For example, when you need to explore a specific topic in depth, or even generate new ideas, or even just to understand group dynamics. So such as conducting, let's say, market research, evaluating the product concepts, or testing advertising campaigns. So these focus groups may be used to gather data and even explore such topics in depth. Then also when you talk about case studies, we have case study. And also I'd like for you later to also look at case studies. So we may use let's say case studies when you need to study, let's say, a specific case or even a situation, such as conducting research on rare events or even evaluating just the effectiveness of interventions or understanding organizational culture. So the advantages of using these case studies is that it can be used to explore, let's say, complex phenomena and relationships. It offers rich and detailed information and even provides in-depth analysis of specific cases or situations. Then when we have, it also has disadvantages. For example, it can be very time consuming and resource intensive. It may also be subject to researcher bias, and it may also not be generalizable to other situations. So that is all about methods of data collection. So choosing the appropriate data collection method, it really depends on various factors. Let's say research question or even availability of resources. It may depend also on the desired level of detail and even the target population. And often a combination of methods may be used to obtain a more comprehensive understanding of a particular topic. So we say that choosing the appropriate data gathering method really depends on various factors. So it's upon the one gathering data to choose the appropriate method, which will be very effective to collect data. So I'd like us to look at our next objective of this particular topic, that is feasibility study report. What is a feasibility study report? So when you talk about feasibility study report, it is a document which summarizes the findings of the feasibility analysis. So this feasibility study report, it usually provides a clear overview of whether the proposed project or system is likely to succeed and even includes recommendations on whether to proceed. So we say that it is a document which summarizes the findings of the feasibility analysis. What are some of the key components which are what are some of the key components of a feasibility study report? So number one, we have executive summary. We also have project description. We have types of feasibility. We have methodology. We have findings, and lastly, recommendation. So those are some of the key components of a feasibility study report. So when you talk about executive summary, now this one is a brief overview of the project and the results of the feasibility study. Then when it comes to project description, this one now details the scope, the objectives and proposed solutions for that particular project. Number 3, we have types of feasibility. So under types of feasibility, it includes analysis of economical, technical, legal, operational, and even schedule feasibilities. Then we also have methodology. We have methodology. This one describes how the feasibility analysis was conducted, including fact-finding methods like interviews, questionnaires, and observation. So here you include the methods which you use to gather the data which was required. Then you also have findings. Under findings, it outlines the results of the feasibility analysis for each type of feasibility. It outlines the results of the feasibility analysis for each type of feasibility. Lastly, we have recommendations. So under recommendation, it offers conclusions on whether the project should proceed and suggest any changes or additional research if necessary. So that was all about topic 5 under feasibility study. And just to recap on what we just covered, we talked about feasibility study, whereby we said it is the process of analyzing whether the proposal is feasible or not. Yeah. And we say that it helps to find the strengths and weaknesses of an existing business or proposed venture, opportunities and even threats which are present in the environment, and also the resources which are required to carry through, and ultimately the prospects for success. We also looked at the uses of feasibility study, whereby we said it is used to determine the objectives which are stated in the assignment, brief or reasonably attainable within the limitation and even financial constraint period. We also talked about it is used to define major problem areas so that the system analyst can plan the strategy for the field investigation. Thirdly, we also say that it is used to determine the appropriate time which is required for the full investigation and costs. We also talked about it is used to find areas where potential exists for saving money, time, or effort. It is also used to discover the areas where some specialist knowledge are needed for the full investigation. We also looked at the methods of gathering data. We looked at questionnaires, observation. We talked about interviews, focus groups. We talked about prototyping. We talked about document review. We talked about sampling. We also mentioned about workshops. And we also mentioned about case studies. We also looked at advantages and disadvantages of this data collection method. Lastly, we looked at a feasibility study report, whereby we say that it is a document which is used to summarize the findings of the feasibility analysis. And we say that it provides a very clear overview of whether the proposed project or system is likely to succeed and even includes recommendations on whether to proceed with that particular project. We also looked at the key components of a feasibility study report, whereby we talked about executive summary being a brief overview of the project and the results of the feasibility study. Number 2, we looked at project description, whereby we say that it is a detailed scope. It contains details of the scope, objectives, and even proposed solutions for that particular project. Number 3, we say that we also have types of feasibility, whereby we mentioned that it includes analysis of economical, technical, legal, operational, and schedule feasibilities. Number 4, we talked about methodology, whereby we mentioned that it describes how the feasibility analysis was conducted, and it includes fact-finding methods which were used, like interviews, questionnaires. We mentioned about observation, yeah, all those methods which are used to collect data. Number 5, we have findings, and we say that it outlines the results of the feasibility analysis for each type of feasibility. And lastly, we talked about recommendations, whereby we mentioned that it offers conclusions on whether the project should proceed and even suggest any changes or additional research if necessary. So that was all about feasibility study. And in our next session, we are going to look at system analysis. So in our next session, we're going to look at system analysis, which is chapter 6 or topic 6 of system analysis and design. So that was all for today, and see you in our next session.